The Solid Start program at the Department of Veterans Affairs has reached out to nearly 70,000 veterans its first year. The program provides personalized calls and resources to veterans who've just left the military. Margarita Devlin is Principal Deputy Undersecretary for Benefits at VA. Margarita, welcome. Thanks for coming on the program. What did you have, if anything, before Solid Start to try to connect with vets as they transitioned out of the military?
Thank you so much for inviting me to talk about this important program. Before we had Solid Start, honestly, most of our military to civilian transition related outreach was really centered around the Transition Assistance Program, which is mostly all of the programming and support that we do before the service member separates from the military. We also had a program which was it still is in effect, a VHA, a healthcare program called Concierge for Care. And what that program does is really just focus on healthcare registration, and it reaches out to service members right before discharge and right after separation to invite them to enroll in healthcare. And really, aside from many other outreach efforts, which were sort of across the country and a lot of different mediums, there really wasn't anything exclusively focused on getting 100% of the veterans that separate from the military and reaching out to them about all their benefits after separation.
And that kind of mirrors what veterans have said for years about their experiences in trying to, for example, find information on the website, that kind of thing. There were a lot of different entry points. Was that one of the goals here, was to try to reduce the number of entry points that vets have to navigate?
Exactly. And also just to sort of make sure that they understand their benefits, because what we consistently heard when we talked to veterans after they separated is that the transition assistance program is wonderful, and during the program they feel really great about it, but afterwards they look back and they say, it was kind of like drinking from a fire hose. We're in the midst of making decisions about our transition, where we're going to live, where we're going to work, where we're going to go to school, and we get these great briefings, but it's so much information all at once. And sometimes you can't really fully consume what you're going to need from your benefits portfolio until after you've left the military and you're actually in the midst of that transition.
And so that's kind of the point here. I note that in the data sheet that you sent that there are, this isn't just one contact with a veteran after he or she leaves the military. What's the ongoing kind of maintenance on the back end of this, Margarita?
That's a really great question. So we do make 3 contacts because we want to make sure, first of all, that the veteran has had just enough time in their transition, right? So that we can get them at a point where they might have questions and they're sort of experiencing that transition. So we start in the first 90 days and we reach out to them. We also follow up again at 6 months and at 1 year. And mind you, before we make these contacts, we're sending them an email in advance to let them know that we're going to be contacting them about their transition. And in that first contact, what we're doing is really just initiating the conversation with how's it going? How is your transition going? What are you experiencing? What's going on in your life? So that the veteran can really drive the conversation, which is different than the classroom experience they have in TAP, right? So this is a very tailored conversation that starts with what's going on in your life. And then the representative sort of can fill in all the benefits, services, coaching, guidance, based on how the conversation goes, and specific to what the veteran is experiencing in their life at that moment.
What did you have to build or get in order to stand this up? What kind of infrastructure did you have to construct to be able to provide this, or were you kind of able to use things you already had on hand?
So we did use the infrastructure in terms of sort of the basic technology and phone systems that we already had in place for our national call center. And then what we did was we built out a scripting tool that helps the representative walk through the different benefits and services based on that conversation that I was mentioning, that's guided by the veteran, so that we don't miss anything, and we make sure we tell them about all the benefits that they should be that might be entitled to and that are relevant to their journey at that point in time. So we had to create the scripting tool, and of course we had to create a training program to train our representatives to make these kinds of outbound calls. It's a very different experience for a customer service representative to be initiating an outbound call to a veteran versus taking a call in, and training them on how to listen for cues and unspoken words, and then specific requests, and making sure that they can address those requests so that the veteran gets a real comprehensive experience with our Solid Start agents.
I mentioned at the beginning, Margarita, that you're a year into this. What are you learning from the data that I imagine that you're collecting, and how are you adjusting now or planning to adjust to better meet the needs of the vets as time goes on?
So we're learning a lot of things after that first year. First of all, we're learning that veterans really do want to take this call. When we first set up the program, we knew we needed a performance metric, and we wanted to just sort of start with the basics, right? How many veterans do we want to make sure take this call? And we know that it's kind of the reality of our world, right? Most people will not answer the phone if they're getting a call that they don't recognize the caller. So we weren't really sure how it was going to take effect, but we've done a lot of marketing. We started talking about it and putting the word out there through social media that Solid Start was happening. But we set a target of 15%, 1-5, right? 15% of veterans, we wanted to make sure they answered the phone. And that was our out of the gate target. So the first thing we learned is that they really want to take this call, because so far we've contacted 72% of priority veterans, and I'll talk about priority veterans, and 56% of the entire veteran population. So we call all the veterans that we have information for after they separate. We also have a priority grouping, which is veterans who had a mental health appointment in that last year after separating from the military. We prioritize them and try to really get them into mental health treatment, either in their community or in VA. So that's the first thing we learned is, wow, veterans really want to take this call, and they're engaging with our representatives. And in many cases, they really needed that call. I mean, we have anecdotes that we hear from our representatives of veterans who said, things like, I didn't even know that the VA has all of this information, and thank you for reaching out to me so that I could connect. The other thing that we're doing is sort of looking at the data to see how are we doing with connecting veterans to their benefits. We've learned that a lot of veterans kind of come out of the military sort of feeling quite stoic about benefits, and we've heard comments like, I don't need disability compensation, let somebody else have that benefit that needs it more than me. And so these agents are really able to kind of talk them through what disability compensation is for, and why they might want to apply for it, and how it works, and actually take an intent to file over the phone, right there on the phone with the veteran, to get the process started for them. Because we don't want them to miss a benefit, and we don't want them to lose that opportunity to get, for example, dedicated health care for whatever conditions they might have incurred while in the service or aggravated while in the service.
Margarita Devlin, a lot more to ask you, but we're out of time. Thanks very much for coming on. Congratulations.
Thank you.